Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Laura, the real Laura B from Twitter and now here on YouTube. I am doing a little short video today. We've had some great news. Johnny Depp was announced that he's going to be a director for a new film. And I thought I would do a separate video on that about the movie, the role, the artist, and separate it out from just current events. So let's get started. Hi, I'm Laura, also known as the real Laura B from Twitter and now here on YouTube. I'm a researcher, new wave internet media, and commentator. I'm not a lawyer nor offering any legal advice. Join me on a journey to review the world of celebrity lawsuits and current events. Let's get started. Hey there. I know my intro is a little rough, but I've updated it because I'm expanding beyond the trial, and I think we all need to move forward. And since I'm sharing these weekly roundups, these are articles that I haven't researched and written. I'm going to be commentating on them. Same with some other things. So yeah, I think it's going to be more of a media channel than a specific reporter's channel. The trial is over. I don't expect any new documents until September when we get our briefs for the appeal, but I'll still do a couple videos specific to the unsealed documents as far as a dive backwards. That what went on behind them, and some of them we actually have rulings for. So that'll be in other videos. So today I wanted to talk about Johnny's new project, and let's share something with you. So Johnny Depp to direct first movie in 25 years, Pacino co-producing Modigliani, biopic about an Italian artist exclusive. Now, I think it's really important right there in the headline because I'm hearing a lot of different things. They are co-producing. There's no casting that's been mentioned yet. Barry Navidi is also co-producing the feature, which makes the star's first feature as director since The Brave, starring himself and Marlon Brando. I encourage you to watch The Brave. It was a passion project for Johnny. He knew he put some money into it himself, but it's a hard movie to make. I mean, there's no getting around it. It's about, I'll just say, very poor family, wanting to provide for his family and agrees to do a snuff film to get money for his family. It's not easy to watch. It's not easy ending. And that's what it's about. And it was very important for Johnny because when he was not having enough money for the budget, he did it himself to finish it. And I posted a Twitter link on it. And I'll put that article in the description below so you can see for yourself. But it's not about this movie. Johnny Depp has lined up his first directing gig in 25 years, Hollywood Reporter can reveal. A quarter of a century after he directed both himself and Marlon Brando in the 1997 The Brave, his feature directorial debut, Depp is set to get behind the camera for Modigliani, about Italian artist Amedeo Modigliani, and will co-produce alongside Al Pacino and Barry Navidi. I think they're calling it Modi, so I'm just going to shorten it for Modi. Based on the play by Dennis McIntyre and adapted for the screenplay by Jerzy and Mary Kromoliski, the film will tell the story of the painter and sculptor in Paris in 1916. Long considered by himself a critical and commercial failure, Modi navigates a turbulent and eventful 48 hours that will become a turning point in his life, ultimately solidifying his reputation as an artistic legend. THR understands that production is set to start in Europe in the spring of 2023, with casting to be revealed shortly. So we don't know if Johnny or Al will have any roles in it. The saga of Mr. Modigliani's life is one that I'm incredibly honored and truly humbled to bring to screen, said Depp, who produces for IN2. In America, his production company is Infinitum Nihil, and it's IN2 for the European arm of his production company, Infinitum Nihil. Well, there it was. It was a life of great hardship, but eventual triumph, a universally human story all viewers can identify. Johnny does that a lot. Yeah. Story of overcoming adversity. His movies often have some very sad endings, though. So that's what we have. I found, oh, wait, I think there's more on below this. Yeah. Modi marks another European project for Depp as he tries to make a career return following his recent and the stupid defamation trial that he won, people, that he won. They're both appealing. Alongside the Modi biopic, Depp is also playing King Louis XV in French director May Win's historical love story, Jeanne de Barry. Jeanne de, I was just told that Jean is the boy's name. Jeanne de Barry, which started shooting in late July and is Depp's first adventure in 3 years. Jeanne de Barry. That's filming now. The film also marks the next collaboration between Pacino and Navidi, who have previously worked together on features including The Merchant of Venice, Wild Salome, and Salome, both produced alongside Into and Depp. Whoops. This project has been very close to Al's heart. Al introduced me to the play Modigliani many years ago, and I instantly fell in love with it, said Navidi. This is a slice of Modi's life, not a bio. It's been a dream of mine to work with Johnny again. He is a true artist with an amazing vision to bring this great story to the screen. Said Pacino in a statement emailed to The Hollywood Reporter, we've been involved with Depp on this project for a number of years. We started principal photography in it, and we will start principal photography in the spring 2023. Although he's best known for his on-screen roles, Depp has produced 10 films, including 2011's Hugo and the most recently 2020's Crock of Gold, A Few Rounds with Shane McGowan. I remember, I don't know what film festival it was, but Johnny was talking about moving on from Hollywood, that he had some projects in mind, and one of them was a director, and he didn't talk much about it. And since they said we've been involved with Depp on this project for a number of years, I wonder if he was referring to that. Barry Navidi is a producer, and just so you know, in 1993, he met Marlon Brando and worked as a production consultant on the production of Don Juan DeMarco, which Johnny was in. So they have worked together before. I thought that was interesting. 5 things to know about Modi. Meet the Italian artist whose iconic portraits captured the face of early 20th century Paris, Amedeo Modigliani. Modigliani. You know I can't pronounce these things. Let's break that up a little bit. Best known as painter before his age of 35, Modi also created impressive sculptures and drawings. However, the legend of his troubled life and early demise and the subsequent suicide of his young fiancée, Jeanne Hébuterne, has intended to overshadow his significant artistic achievement. As Arthur Vancil, I'm just not even going to say words anymore, wrote in 1929. See, this is going to happen now with Johnny working in Europe. All these words and names that would be completely unfamiliar to me for pronunciation. The life of Modigliani, wandering artist, so often resembles a legend, it is difficult to determine fact from fiction. What remains of this extraordinary man is a body of work that modernized figurative painting, often characterized by their elongated bodies and blank eyes. His subjects are distinctly Modigliani, each telling a different story about his life and art. And here are the few things you may not know about him. He is at the Tate Modern from November 23rd, 2017 to, I guess this is where this article is from when he had a showing there. His nudes were very controversial. For his first and only solo exhibition, Modi painted a series of nudes, which are now among his most famous paintings. Legend has it that the nudes drew such a crowd around the gallery that it eventually caught the attention of a police officer. The officer was offended, not so much by their nudity as by the fact they displayed pubic hair, and promptly ordered them to be taken down. Whether or not this actually happened, the exhibition certainly caught the imagination of the public and contributed to Modi's reputation as a scandalous playboy. In addition, Modi's modern women are seen by some as a symbol of sexuality and defiance. Their unapologetic stares and poses convey women in control of their bodies and their livelihoods. Models at the time earned relatively good money. This in itself made a real statement. We're going to be reviewing a lot of these paintings after this. He loved poetry. I do not think I have ever met a painter who loved poetry so much, says Ilya Ehrenberg. Modi was said to regularly recite Dante and other poets from memory. He also painted a number of well-known contemporary poets and writers, including Blaise Cendrars, Guillaume Apollinaire, and Jean Cocteau. His favorite text was the Les Chants de Maldoror by the Comte de Latremont, Isidore Lucien Ducasse. I'm dying here, guys. I'm dying here. Everybody have a good laugh on me. I'm dying here. Which he carried everywhere in his pocket. The reason for his obsession with this particular text may be due to the connections with his own life. Ducasse was anecdotally remembered as a deceased genius and a loner. Modi may have felt that this loner poet reflected his own unpredictable moods and outsider status as an Italian Jew in Paris. He drew constantly. To do any work, I must have a living person. I must be able to see him opposite me. Modi loved to draw from life, although sometimes he may have used photographs for reference. More often, his paintings started with him working directly from a model. He was an obsessive draftsman, often pulling out paper and pencil in cafes or on the street in an exercise that has been described as graphic gymnastics. These drawings became crucial preliminaries to his paintings, as well as items he could try and exchange for goods when short on money. And that's probably something here. His sculptures may be made from stolen stone. For a few years of his life, Modi abandoned painting to focus on sculpture. He was even chosen to exhibit at the Salon d'Automne in 1912, a great honor for a young artist at the time. However, given his financial difficulties, biographers have wondered how Modi managed to afford the expensive materials needed to make these works. It may be that, like a number of other sculptors at the time, at times he borrowed stone to support his practice. Montparnasse, where he lived, was one of the last areas of Paris to be renovated, with a wealth of limestone set aside for its building sites. It is possibly not a coincidence that Modigliani's series of heads are carved from the same type of rock. Not a coincidence. I'm not sure what part of Johnny's movie they're going to cover. It's only for 2 days. Will it be his paintings or will it be his sculptures? He wasn't afraid to speak his mind. In 1918, Modi and his partner Jeanne Hébuterne visited the famous impressionist Pierre-Auguste Renoir. Probably believing Modi would enjoy some banter, Renoir confided that he did not believe a painting of a nude was finished unless he felt the urge to slap her backside. Instead of laughing along, Modi cut the conversation short by replying bluntly, "I don't like buttocks." His alleged answer an example of how Modi lived on his own terms, not feeling the need to be deferential to other, more established individuals. It could also be read as a sign of respect for his female models. Despite his many flaws, when you look at Modi's portraits, they can be read as being painted with empathy and emotion. And that's that. So I found the website of Amedeo Modigliani, we're going to call him Modi, detailing some of his most famous paintings. Jeanne Hébuterne is inseparable from Modi, and the surprising and sad truth that it was her death rather than life that tied them together forever. It is common knowledge that she committed suicide the day after Modi's death and was buried in the same grave. She didn't live to see her 22nd birthday. In the history of art, she is accorded the honorable role of the last but not the least influential muse of Modi. Popular literature and cinema repeatedly used her image to give their own view of the life story of the great artist. Picturing her as a young girl devoted to her husband, the looks somewhat banal, why not her predecessor, Simon Thierry, who had given birth to Modi's son, whom he had refused to recognize? She was also young, fresh, and in love with him, if only perhaps not so devoted. When Modi met Jeanne, and started to go out with her, all his friends and entire bohemian milieu recognized her as wife rather than another girlfriend. Before meeting him, Jeanette, as everybody called her, did not belong to the Bohemians, although she was known as a young artist and Académie Colorosi student. It was there that they met. Modi, see, they call him Modi, also visited the Académie to paint sitters for free. Sculptor Hanna Orlova, the common friend, helped them come to know each other. They met in the spring of 1917 when Jeanne was 19. She had a beautiful figure looking like an amphora, and her swinging gait of heelless shoes resembled the movement of seaweeds. She had an extraordinary pale complexion, the face framed with a mane of gorgeous auburn hair, braided or forming rosettes at the temples that looked like sunflowers. Before giving birth to her daughter in 1919, Jeanne kept changing the way she looked by experimenting with hairdos. She was taciturn, even melancholy, and in some respects very much like her mother. Contemporaries recalled that her gaze was grave and introverted. She was indeed selflessly in love with Modi, but failed to make him drop alcohol and drugs, nor could anything be done about his chronic TB, which eventually claimed his life. She was his guardian angel, muse, and the subject of most of his canvases and drawings. Neither before meeting Modi nor after they started living together did Jeanne sit for anyone else. She didn't live to see her 22nd birthday. Very elongated necks that he's known for, and fairly empty eyes, but I see expression there. Reclining nude. Modi is best known for his works created in Paris between 1915 and 1919. Portraits in which a few telling details achieve a striking likeness, and nudes. He celebrated a series of nudes reclining women, begun in 1916. Continues a tradition of depictions of Venuses from the Renaissance to the 19th century, but with one significant difference. The eroticisms of the earlier figures is always couched in a mythological or anecdotal context, whereas Modigliani dispenses with this pretext. Consequently, his women appear unabashedly frank and provocative. The 24 or so figures in the series, never his mistresses or friends, but always professional models, lie on the dark bed cover that accentuates the glow of their skin. They are seen close up and usually from above. Their stylized bodies span the entire width of the canvas, and their hands and feet often remain outside of the picture. Sometimes asleep, the most often face the viewer, as does this gracefully built model in one of the artist's most famous paintings of the series. In this painting from 1917, the model's stylized, outlined body spans the entire canvas. Viewed close up and from above, her hands and feet disappear outside the frame as her creamy skin glows across the dark red bed or couch. Modi provocatively presents the reclining nude, which highlights the figure's eroticism. By this picture, if no other of his nudes, Modi invites comparison with the grand tradition of the nude as exemplified by Giorgione, Titan, and all these other ones, Manet, Goya. It is perhaps with the frank come-hither sexuality of Goya's naked Maha, with its discreet balance between naturalism, elegance, and the comparison can best be seen in this case. It's interesting, hands and legs cut off. Reclining nude, 1917. Nude sitting on a divan, 1917. Modi created Nude Sitting on a Divan in 1917, depicting a partially draped woman seated with crossed legs against a warm background. The work was one of a series of nudes painted that created a sensation when exhibited in Paris that year. On November 2nd, 2010, the painting sold at a New York auction for $68.9 million, a record price for an artwork by Modi. I think it's sad when we read these things because we know the artists will never see that money, and doubtfully any of their decedents. The several dozen nudes Modi painted between 1916 and 1919 constitute many of his best-known works, simultaneously abstracted and erotically detailed. They exhibit a formal grace, referencing nude figures of the Italian Renaissance, while at the same time objectifying their subject's sexuality. They exemplify his position between tradition and modernism. The nudes of this period are displayed boldly, with only the faintest suggestion of setting. Neither demure nor provocative, they are depicted with degrees of objectivity, yet the informally thick, rough application of paint, as it's applied by the sculptor's hand, is more concerned with mass and the visceral perception of the female body than the titillation and the recreation of translucent tactile flesh. The series of nudes, and not all of these pictures have this long descriptions, it's just the first couple. The series of nudes was commissioned by Modi's dealer and friend Leopold Zaborski, who lent the artist use of his apartment, supplied models and painting materials, and paid him between 15 and 20 francs each day for his work. The paintings from this arrangement were thus different from the previous depictions of friends and lovers, and that they were funded by Zaborowski, either for his own collection or as favor to his friend, or with the eye to their commercial potential, rather than originating from the artist's personal circle of acquaintances. The Paris show of 1917 was Modi's only solo exhibition during his life and is notorious in modern art history for its sensational public reception and the attendant issues of obscenity. The show was closed by police on its opening day, but continued thereafter, most likely after the removal of paintings from the gallery's street front window. According to the catalog description from 2010 cell, Sotheby's, 7 nudes were exhibited in 1917 show, 4 of them titled New. The present work may have been among these pictures. The model's permissiveness and the artist's accessibility to them implied that these oils were post-coital renderings, the women still flush and basking in their afterglow. In 1999, nude sitting on a divan sold at Sotheby's for $16.7 million, a record price for a painting by the artist. The most recent sale far surpassed the pre-sale estimates of $40 million, as well as the previous record for one of Modi's works, $52.6 million for a sculpture. And we got legs cut off. We got one arm hidden. Not so much elongated neck there, somewhat. Madame Pompadour, 1915. In Madame Pompadour, and this is a very long neck and empty eyes, Modi's emphasis is on strong formal structure dominated by the grid in the background and the echoing curves of the sitter's hat, shoulders, and features. There is none of the pathos often associated with his work. The artist seems instead to have invested this portrait with a note of ironic detachment, even humor, reflected in both the title of the painting, which refers to Madame de Pompadour, mistress of King Louis XV of France, and the expression of amused inscrutability worn by the sitter. Were painter and sitter perhaps both amused by the flamboyant hat? Modi's skill in rhyming forms while at the same time keeping us visually interested and slightly off balance is evident, throughout the picture, which resonates with the lessons of Paul Cézanne, Picasso, and African sculpture. I'm just going to do the intros for his more famous ones from the beginning. I'll just do the intros for these. The links will be here. But I wanted to take some time to appreciate his art. And here, look, the connection to King Louis XV, which Johnny is playing now. Gypsy woman with baby. We see her hands there. I do not know that anyone before Modi succeeded more in putting more intense expressions on the face of a woman. Enthuses Francis Carco. Art today only needs to make more meticulous copies. Modi makes a mockery of his practitioners' reluctance to analyze their own consequences. The painting Gypsy Woman with Baby looks simple, but that's a deception. There are deep undercurrents of art historical awareness here, especially of an Italian heritage. See her oval face, which shows mask-like indifference or incisive characterization, depending on your taste, which recalls the long visages of Botticelli. The elongated forms of her body, the neck most remarkably here, echoes Mannerists of the 16th century, and the sinuous lines that dance down her skirt over her chest and alongside her face slink in the same way as Sienese paintings of the 14th century. So it is that in his art of assembled ever so subtle influences, we must see Modi as the greatest Italian artist of the 20th century and not a French-formed painter at all. Nice. Madame Georges Van Muyden, 1917. This is quite possibly one of the small number of portraits Modi painted as a commission, since his models generally belonged to his circle of French fellow Bohemians. These circumstances account for the more composed, elegant, and self-possessed nature of the sitter. So this was a commission, most likely. Painted as a commission. Portrait of Diego Rivera. The portrait of Diego was painted in 1914. Modi painted many peers, and Diego Rivera is one of them. In this painting, Modi employed a quite different range of technical means, ingeniously adapted to the personalities of his sitters. Though the dominant note in most of Modi's portraits seemed to be one of melancholy and wistful loneliness, these are far from being the only sentiments or the only moods he is capable of expressing. Modi was capable of portraying not only such as these, but also the complacent and self-satisfied, the preposterous and successful fortune favorites with money in the bank and place in the sun. No eyebrow here. It's all to the left. Eyebrow coming down the dark side of the nose. Portrait of Hanka Zaborska. The painting, also called Anna Zaborska, is one of the earliest in a long series of portraits that Modi painted of the wife of Leopold Zworycki. The Cubist influence is unmistakable in the asymmetrical treatment of the model's features and the peculiar representation of the fanned-out collar of her blouse. The artist aimed to depict the living form by using the most economical means can be seen in the simplicity of this portrait with its mask-like face and black eyes. Subjective and wholly personal as those derogatory opinions are, we may well suspect that them of being off-founded, not so much of an appraisal of the work themselves as on circumstances having no direct bearing on them. This has been, for example, an attempt to describe the special qualities, in fact, that Modi was of Jewish descent. Portrait of Jean Cocteau. He's a French writer and filmmaker. The painting clearly illustrates a consistent feature in Modi's production, namely the depiction of two different angles within the same portrait, showing how the frontal pose of the sitter's body melds with the lateral view of the same model's facial features. The intellectualized notion of anatomy is prevalent in primitive art and was given its ultimate expression by cubics. Portrait of Mrs. Hastings, 1915. This painting was painted in 1915 on a paper board. The painting shows clearly the influence of African sculpture. These imperatives are part and parcel of a system of values, which is not imposed on the artist from without, but to which he willingly subscribes. Distortions and anomalies of perspective all have their place in the self-sufficient hierarchy, and a spiritual reorganization of the visible world in which every seeming constraint has its purpose and a profound significance. Subjective and wholly personal as Tiro's derogatory opinions are, we may well suspect them of being often founded not so much on an appraisal of works themselves as on circumstances, having no direct bearing on them. There had been, for example, an attempt to ascribe their special qualities to the fact that Modi was of Jewish descent. One historian of modern art, who cannot for a moment be suspected of racial prejudice in any form, and whose admiration for Modi is expressed in many pages of excellent criticism, concludes his study of the artist with curious pronouncements. Very elongated neck, black eyes. Portrait of Picasso. The painting of Picasso was painted in 1915. Modi got to know Picasso when he was in Paris in 1906 and lived in Le Bateau Lavoir artistic community. They both shared an interest in African art, which influenced them in different ways in their work. They used to be good friends and hang out together. Picasso used to make this comment: Modi is the only man in Paris who knows how to dress. He also tried to help Modi to get a dealer. But they drifted apart later, probably because Picasso does not like Modi's lifestyle. And I guess that's what we'll see more in the movie, because they're certainly not talking about that very much, other than a reference of his drug and alcohol use. Woman with a fan. That's the brightest color one I think I've seen. This painting, Woman with a Fan, is one of the May paintings painted by Modi about this woman. Modi met this lady 1 year before his death and painted this portrait at 3 years after he met Lunia Czekowska. The Polish woman and her husband, Casimir, were old friends of Modi's patron dealer, Leopold Zworycki. Others out-of-wedlock daughter. Only his death caused the artist to cease attempting to seduce her. Here, Modi shows his firm friend posed gracefully, her seated body in its yellow dress forming lithe curves against the scarlet background. Later in life, Czekowska vividly recalled sitting for Modi as he drank cheap brandy, sang, lapsed into Italian, and eventually fell so far into the act of painting that he became oblivious to the presence of another human being. And then there she was on campus, left with the impression of having the soul laid bare and of being in the strange position of being able to do nothing to disguise her feelings. Woman with blue eyes. The neutral backgrounds of these portrait women in blue eyes underscores the tactile value of the sitters' faces. While the art of this period was increasingly dominated by analytic approaches, Modi, in keeping with his own traditional view of the painter's role, remained more concerned with especially tangible aspects of art. Yellow sweater. Jeanne Hébuterne. Modi's friends described his last companion as a talented young artist who, in her lover's presence, always remained imperturbably silent, to the extent that some of those who met her claimed that they never heard her voice. The image of Jeanne, whom her friends used to call Coconut for her peculiar auburn hairdo, effectively conveys her gentle and somewhat languorous demeanor. The composition is divided into broad fields of color in a subtly decorative manner. The figure's sinuous silhouette stands out uninterrupted against the background. And we saw her here, the first one. A few more. Woman in black tie. This painting, Woman in Black Tie, is one of the few other works by Modi emanate such a mysterious gaze as strongly as this portrait. The artist explained to Leopold Sauvage that it was an intensely introspective gaze, one similar to those found in images of the the pharaoh Akhenaten, or in the Charlatier of Delphi, which so fascinated Modi. This effect in painting, achieved in sculpture more readily by the character of the materials, enhances the model's remoteness, inviting the viewer to ponder the viability of communication between human beings. The same question is at the foundation of the metaphysical painting of Georges de Chirico, another Italian artist. It boggles my mind, empty eyes. I'm so used to hearing about paintings with your eyes follow you and these empty eyes, and yet they're still looking at you. Monsieur le Poutre. Modi's use of pale, chalky colors is mainly associated with his stay in south of France in 1918, but occasionally is seen in earlier works. Here, the pale colors are matched by an unusually tentative, broken drawing of the features, so that the image is convincingly parallel with the facing of old age. Modi's color sense constantly reminds us of the Italian origin. He did not really have to submit to the influence of Cézanne or the light of the Midi in order to return to the dry, ochreous colors of the South. Seated Nude, 1916. Perhaps the most beautiful of Modi's nudes, it is one of the earliest. It does not yet betray the overfluency of line that leads to the eye to slip all too easily over the profiles of the later nudes. Here, the most elegant and delicate profiles are conveyed by a somewhat broken line, somewhat heavy, more often light, in places made only by the boundaries of between tones. Of all the nudes, this seems to be most likely to have been based on Modi's first companion, Beatrice Hastings. Although the features are generalized and adapted to the needs of the composition, they are not incompatible with hers. If the hair is darker than the known portraits suggest, it might be because Modi wished to adapt it to the colors of the composition. Not so elongated neck there. Hand is off to the side, legs cut off, this hand hidden. Reclining nude with blue cushion. Even if Modi's life had been orderly and meticulously chronicled, his paintings of nudes would have been the subject of speculation. There exists in 20th century art a thick undergrowth of erotic imagery from which occasionally a painting may emerge by its own merits to the status of an independent work of art, but very rarely reaches the rank of the generally innovative masterpiece of modern art. Modi's nudes are certainly works of art. Some of them are masterpieces, but without losing any of their memorable erotic content. To acknowledge this is not to acquiesce in the assumption that Modi's nudes are only a visual record of sexual adventures. Despite everything, Modi was essentially a painter to the core, and his ability to convey an erotic feeling professionally, not anecdotally, should not be impugned. His nudes are erotic as those by Titan Renoir. They are not pornographic. And last but not least, nu couché. In the scale of erotic values, the nude from behind has a special place. Boucher used it to a devastating effect, but the most famous image of the nude female back is doubtless Rocabe Venus in Diego Velázquez. Doesn't help that they're putting it in yellow print for me to read. where the eroticism is subsumed in the breathtaking beauty of the figure. However, it is certainly not of such courtly painters, but rather of the Dutch school or of the Courbet that one thinks in connections with the rather beefy nude. Although Modi's influence and fundamental artistry produce a striking image which is not without grace when he decides, as here, to portray the whole figure. The feet are in the picture. Notice that? There's space on either end. When he decides, as here, to portray the whole figure, his occasional weakness of drawing cannot be concealed. It is evident in the lower legs and especially the ankles and feet, and such weaknesses are mercilessly highlighted by comparison with Velasquez. The apparent exaggeration of hips and thighs may be intended to heighten the erotic effect already conveyed by the pose, though not so much. The face is personalized, the glance seemingly off guard and warning off, which does nothing to diminish the sexuality implicit in the painting. 1916. So he seems to have a short career. I'm really excited that Johnny's doing this. We know he's an artist. He's doing his own art with the NFTs. So I think this is right up his alley that he's highlighting an artist. Again, he's co-producing it with Al Pacino. And I think it's really neat that they said over years they've been talking about this. We know nothing of Johnny's private life behind the scenes with his friends. And apparently he hasn't been so isolated because of the situations he's been going through. We've seen him with pictures with his friends, and we didn't know about Al. So I'm glad that they're continuing. I hope you like this little video. It's different than what we had, but Johnny's doing this movie for a reason. So I thought it would be important to introduce the artist to us. And I will be doing another one on King Louis XV. That movie is being filmed now. Will come out, I think, spring of 2023, possibly. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for coming, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.